Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to discuss about acute glomerulonephritis. As we know, these are different disorders which are clubbed together. So acute means which is happening within the last 3 weeks of the duration. Acute glomerulonephritis is defined as the onset of hematuria, proteinuria, and RBC cast in the urine. So it is a triad kind of thing, in which urine shows hematuria, proteinuria, and RBC cast. Clinical picture is often characterized by hypertension, edema, and azotemia. There is a renal salt water retention. So, to see the history of this disease, initially Hippocrates described the disease. Then Richard Bright diagnosed this disease. So it was initially used to call as a Price disease. Then due to Theodore Langerhans able to diagnose the pathophysiologic cause for this. These are glomerular changes. Structurally, now there is a cellular proliferation which leads to increase in number of cells in glomerular tufts. So there is an infection of glomerulus. Acute glomerulonephritis means the glomerulus is infected. So then the infection leads to the proliferation of endothelial, mesangial, and epithelial cells in the glomerulus. So this proliferation can be endocapillary, that is inside the glomerulus, or outside the Bowman's capsule, it is extracapillary. Then the leukocyte infiltration, as we know, in any acute disease there is a leukocyte infiltration, which can be due to neutrophils, monocytes within the glomerular capillary domain. And there is a cellular proliferation because of this activity. Another thing is glomerular basement membrane thickening, which is a classical of most of the this nephrological diseases. There is a thickening of the glomerular basement membrane. In this one variety is post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, which is very you might get a short note for this because this is the only thing discussed about this disease. Acute nephritis, or most of the this our MBBS learning, is a post-streptococcal nephritis because it is the only thing which you see in day-to-day practice. Other disorders are very rare, and they don't come directly to the general practitioner. So in this, there is a streptococcal M protein. Previously, they used to say M protein is cause for this, but now after this so much of research in this area, they have found nephritis associated streptococcal carinic protease, and it's the zymogen precursor, which is known as nephritis associated plasmin receptor (NAPLR), which is the cause for this disease now. So even if you write this short form of NAPLR, which is the cause for this disease now. Even in immunofluorescence staining of kidney biopsy, you will get the anti-NAPLR antibodies. So this is a diagnostic of this disease. Now the antibody levels in this disease are increased, and these are due to streptococcal infection. Like as the name suggests, it is a streptococcal disease, post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, and the antibodies to NAPR persist for years. So this are actually protective against repeated attacks of PHN, post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Because after one episode, you don't get the repeated episodes. And as per now, if you go ahead with the acute nephritis or acute glomerulonephritis etiology, I have classified them in 5 types, in which there is infectious cause for acute nephritis, then non-streptococcal post-infectious. Hello? Hello? And primary renal disease and miscellaneous non-infectious disease. The infectious, as we discussed, it is a streptococcal species. It is a group A beta hemolytic streptococci, in which 2 serotypes are described. Serotype 12, it is a post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis due to respiratory infection. So you will have a upper respiratory infection previous to this disease, and serotype 49, which is due to skin infection. So skin infection and respiratory infection, these are the cause for this disease. The post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis usually develops 1 to 3 weeks after the specific nephrogenesis strains infect respiratory tract or skin. The incidence of glomerulonephritis is 5 to 10% in these patients. So not all patients will get glomerulonephritis, and 25% with skin infection. Then non-streptococcal causes are diplococci, other streptococci, staphylococci, In Mycobacteria, Salmonella, Brucella, Treponema, Corynebacterium bovis, Acinetobacter, cytomegaloviruses, and other viruses like Coxsackie, Epstein-Barr virus, hepatitis B virus, rubella, rickettsia, parvovirus, mumps. Then fungal infections like coccidioidomycosis, mycosis. Then parasitic infections also can cause this. But for us, it most important is the post-streptococcal infection. So streptococcus and staphylococcus, both are most important for us. Then there are some non-infectious causes also. So what are these causes? There are multisystemic disorders or miscellaneous diseases. So the multisystemic disorders include vasculitis. So you will have vasculitis, collagen vascular disease, hypersensitive vasculitis, myoglobinemia, polyarteritis nodosa, HSP, that is Henoch-Schönlein purpura, then good posture syndrome. Then primary renal diseases, which include a membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis, immunoglobulin A nephropathy, Buerger's disease, pure mesangial proliferative glomerulonephritis, idiopathic rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. So these are purely renal diseases. Then some miscellaneous diseases like GBS, irradiation of Wilms tumor, TPD vaccination, serum sickness, and some this antibodies or antibody mediated drugs, which are like cetuximab, might be causing this kind of presentation. Then epidemiology in this acute nephritis syndromes, IgA nephropathy is most common cause. So what is different is in nephritic syndrome, the proteinuria is less than 3 grams. So this Buerger disease or IgA nephropathy is a component of nephritic syndrome because they have less than 3 grams of proteinuria. So you have to remember, like IgA nephropathy is not a nephrotic syndrome. It is the most common cause of acute nephritic syndrome, in which there is a hematuria, proteinuria, and there is cast in the urine. Then, due to now this hygienic conditions are improved in most of the countries, post-coronal diabetes is less likely seen, but it is most commonly seen in pediatric groups only. So, as this age and sex-related demographics suggested, so it is most common disorder in children. Age group is 5 to 15 years, and 10% of this patient might occur after 40 years of age. So, the most common age group is 6 to 10 years. Most commonly, it affects males compared to females, 2:1 ratio, and poor hygiene is related to this disease in some socioeconomic groups. Clinical features, as we know, it is a hematuria, the classical finding. In this, there is a gross hematuria reported in 30% of pediatric patients. So they might present with a cola-colored urine. So they will come with you, the urine is very dark colored or smoky or coffee colored. Then there is oliguria. Some pediatric patients will present with decreased urine output, the oliguria. They have edema, peripheral or periorbital edema. Approximately of 85% patients, they might have edema. Then there is headache also because of blood pressure increase, shortness of breath due to fluid retention or dyspnea. Then flank pain could be due to a renal capsular involvement. Physical examination in these patients might be normal, but in some patients there is a signs of edema, hypertension, and oliguria. So the signs of fluid overload might be seen, like a periorbital or pedal edema. There is a edema, hypertension due to fluid overload. That is 75% of these patients. There is a edema and hypertension. Then crackles. Crackles can be seen because of the pulmonary edema. Then there is an elevated jugular pressure or ascites and pleural. So all this we know is a signs of fluid overload. So there is a extra fluid inside the body because of decreased urine output. Then differential diagnosis, actually it's a very difficult to differentiate from other disorders, but there are some disorders like anaphylactic purpura with nephritis. So these anaphylactic purpuras have anaphylaxis reactions signs, all the signs of anaphylaxis. Any chronic glomerulonephritis, you have recurrent episodes in the past, which could be acute or chronic kind of glomerulonephritis. Then idiopathic hematuria, as such, they have no cause. They only have hematuria. There are no signs of fluid retention. And familial nephritic syndromes. So these are very rare syndromes. They have family history of nephritic syndrome. Then post-infectious type of glomerulonephritis, we have to differentiate from other types of nephritic syndromes. So acute nephritic syndrome, most common is post-infectious or IgA nephropathy associated with that. Then so you have to differentiate a post-infectious patient with other types of acute nephritic syndromes only. So there is a differentiation inside the acute nephritic syndromes. Post streptococcal glomerulonephritis or post infectious glomerulonephritis. Most common differentiation is IgA nephropathy only. As IgA nephropathy is most common nephritic syndrome. Then some patients has to differentiate from MPGA, that is methylproliferative type of glomerulonephritis. Then lupus nephritis, in which there is a abscess of gross hematuria. Then glomerulonephritis of chronic infection. So these patients have ongoing infection and ongoing nephritic syndrome. Then some vasculitis strains like strains MRSA might be associated with vasculitic lesions in the lower extremities. And other disorders like HSTTP. The investigations, there are not much investigations are required. We can diagnose this disease on the basis of urea, creatine, complement level, urine protein microscopy, and anti-streptococcal enzymes like streptozyme test. So in the streptozyme test, in which there are many streptococcal antigens, these are sensitive to screening. These are like DNA, streptokinase, streptolysine, or ASO. As we see, we send ASO titers in these patients. So the increase of ASO titers suggests of underlying streptococcal disease. So usually they begin with 1 to 3 weeks after the upper respiratory infection or skin disease. The ASO titer peak after 3 to 5 weeks, and then ASO titer returns to normal after 6 months. So these patients might have increased ASO titer for up to 6 months. But ASO titer has no relation with severity, duration, or progress from the renal disease. Now, this increasing ASO titers or streptozyme titers confirm the recent infection. And in patient with skin infection, anti-DNSB, that is ADB titers, are more sensitive compared to ASO titers. So, if there is a history of skin disorder previously, then we have to send anti-DNSB also. Then the most definitive test in these patients is renal biopsy, but renal biopsy is not required in most of the patients because these are a self-limited disease. So if you see a pediatric patient with nephrotic syndrome, they get recovered within 3 weeks. So no need of kidney biopsy in all the acute nephrotic syndrome patients. But kidney biopsy might be required in some patients who are not responding, or some patient with atypical presentation, or some patient for workup of the glomerulonephritis. Now, the renal biopsy guides the classification of glomerulonephritis. In this, most commonly is immune complex glomerulonephritis syndromes, which is lupus nephritis, IgA nephropathy, post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Immune complex means there is a antibody and antigen reaction. Then there is second variety is anti-neutrophil cytoplasmic antibody, ANCA-associated glomerulonephritis. Third variety is anti-GBM glomerulonephritis. Fourth variety is monoclonal immunoglobulin glomerulonephritis. It is multiple myeloma related. And five is a C3, that is complement factor C3 level glomerulonephritis. Then histological findings in these patients are diffuse endocapillary proliferative changes. Most commonly are diffuse changes, then focal and mesenteric changes. The hypercellular etiology in this patient is due to cellular infiltration. So neutrophils are inside the kidneys or inside the glomerulus. This is leading to all this kind of picture. Then the immunofluorescence you might have studied in pathology books. They say it is a steric sky appearance because of presence of IgG inside the mesenterium. Then in some patients of staphylococcal infection, they might have IgA plus C3 also. Now the treatment, treatment is an easy thing in this patient because these are self-limiting diseases. So the only supportive treatment is required. There is no specific treatment for acute nephritic syndromes, which are secondary to post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. So post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, they are self-limiting disease. We have to just observe the patient and we have to support the therapy. Underlying chronic infection, if there, like skin infections, we have to treat them first. Then pharmacological therapy, as we know, there is no specific therapy for this disease. We can use some antibiotics like penicillin group antibodies like cephalosporin group also can be used. So the antibiotic therapy does not required in most of the GM, except if the patient is not responding or there are close contacts in these patients. Then loop diuretics or diuretics like furosemide. This is required in the patient who are edematous, or you have to remove the excess fluid, that is edema fluid or fluid inside body, like acute pulmonary edema. You have to use the diuretics to reduce the edema inside body. Then the vasodilators drug. These are for blood pressure control. Suppose a patient, pediatric patient coming with accelerated hypertension, blood pressure more than 200 milligrams of mercury, then we can use drugs to control the blood pressure like nitroprusside, then nifedipine, hydrozine. This kind of drugs can be used to control the blood pressure. The glucocorticoids and cytotoxic therapy agents are of no value in this patient. So if you see nephrotic syndromes require steroids, but nephritic syndromes, like we are discussing, they don't require steroids. They are managed conservatively only. There is no specific treatment. We can use antibiotic, diuretic, antihypertensive drugs. So steroids are not required here. Then in diet, we have to restrict the sodium because blood pressure is increasing. We have to restrict the sodium, and food restriction is there. These patients to avoid the fluid overload. So the reduce the water intake, and reduce the sodium intake. Then protein restriction. If there is an increase in creatinine levels, we have to reduce the proteins also. And bed rest is recommended for 2 to 3 weeks. That's thank you. Any question?